And you can, I don't know if you hit.
I did.
We need to cut that part out now.
I'll cut that out.
One of the ways that we are committing to you as family and as families is that we want to try and do our best to equip you in your own homes and in your own lives to disciple your kids. And so we've been going through the Jesus Storybook Bible and the stories represented by them, in the actual Bible for the adults. And so, but we've been going through these 4 questions. And my question is, and I'm getting too long to get there, is how are you doing with the 4 questions? Because this story is a hard one. So if you're doing them, and if you're, talking about these questions with your kids, just understand this was a hard one. And so as we go, I'll answer as best I can some of the, because there's not just one right answer. I'll answer some of those questions as we go. But it's important that we do those 4 questions, because here's the thing. The 4 questions, if you're new here, the 4 questions are: who is God? What has He done? Who does that make me? And what do I do living out of that new identity? And the problem is that most of us grew up in churches and we're just wired this way. That, okay, what do I do? That's kind of where we land. It's like, what do I do? Just show me what to do so I can either check the box or not check the box, and I'm just kind of done with it. And we're saying, no, you got to back up. Without falling over, you got to back up a little bit. And you got to ask some other questions, because otherwise, I've heard these, otherwise you end up with like a 4th question mentality, a 4th question sermon. So here's an example of a 4th question sermon. You take Peter, Paul, some disciple, somebody in the Old Testament who did something sacrificial, did something service-oriented, and so you teach that, and then you say, so now you guys go serve. And here's 5 different ways that you can serve. And then everybody, or some of you, kind of check the box and go, okay, I'm going to go do whatever I do. I'm going to go serve at the Knoxbury Community Kitchen. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. Or it's not my thing, and so you don't do that, but you kind of feel halfway guilty about it. Okay, you get what I'm saying? And even the ones of you that actually go do something, you end up doing it for several weeks, and it's just like, but it falls out of the schedule, and okay, right? So it's so important to back up to those questions and to do them in order, because that's what we end up with if we just become, okay, what do we do, people? When you back up to the 4 questions, you start with, who is God? And let's just take that brief example of being a servant. And what did He do? He served us. Jesus Himself said, I didn't come to serve, or I didn't come to be served, I came to serve. And who does that make us? We're servants. And so what do? We serve. But do you see how it's different? It's different because it becomes our identity. It's who I am, not what I do. It's who God is making me, not what I just decided that I'm going to grit my teeth and do because somebody told me to do it. Okay, so too long of an introduction. Kids, I'm sorry, I'm boring already, but look at me and we'll get going. But adults at least, keep those questions in mind, and we'll jump into the story here. Chapter 11, verse 1 says this: Now the whole earth used the same language and the same words. It came about as they journeyed east, and that's important because it's farther from Eden. They found a plain in the land of Shinar, and settled there. Now remember, God called His people to be fruitful and multiply. He told Adam and Eve that. He told Noah that. God always pushes His people outward. He always pushes His people toward sending and giving and generosity, toward mission and service and sacrifice. That is constantly what God is doing. If you read every Bible story, that's what He's doing. That's man's purpose. Cover the earth and speak about and live out God's greatness. Now, man, apart from God, always looks inward. Toward gathering and securing, toward accomplishing for his own glory, keeping and holding and closing off. That's exactly what they do. The people find a place of comfort and they stop. Verse 3. They said to one another, "Come, let's make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. And they said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city, and a tower whose top will reach into heaven. And let us make for ourselves a name. Otherwise, we will be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth." They want a city. They want a place to belong. They want a place of security. They want a place of comfort. They want a tower. They want significance. They want to feel like they're important. They want something permanent. They want to be known for something. They want a name for themselves. They want to be connected to greatness. They want to be connected to something that gives them notoriety. They want to be connected to something that gives them significance and value and worth. Right? Okay. If you could see in your Bibles, Genesis 11:4, that's the American dream. Comfort, security, importance, value, notoriety, fame even. I mean, the American dream is what? To have a nice house and good job and nice family, nice car. But why do we want those things? Because they make us comfortable. Because they make us secure. Because they make us feel like we're worth something. The car that the kids drive now has 240,000 miles on it or something like that. I don't remember how many are on it. When we bought it brand new, it was a nice car. Actually, we didn't buy it brand new. We bought it used. But when we bought it, it was a nice car. The car I drove before that also had 200,000 miles on it. It was held together by rust and good intentions.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah. But I'm telling you, I felt different driving the new Toyota than I did the old Honda. I felt more important. And that hit me like 2 weeks in, and I thought, how shallow am I? What am I thinking? Right? So, but let's just be clear. What's wrong with those things? Is there anything wrong with wanting security, importance, value, notoriety? Is there anything wrong with wanting a nice car, a nice house? Is there anything wrong with wanting comfort? No. There's nothing wrong until we try to get from them what they cannot give. They will never get us where we want to go. We will never climb high enough to satisfy our need. It just won't happen. So, just talk back to me for a little bit. What do you have to accomplish to feel important? Anything? Any ideas? Probably ought to have a good job. What else do you need to feel important? Or maybe that's too hard. Respect? How much money do you need in order to feel secure? Like
Just a little bit
really
more.
secure. It's exactly the right answer. You know what mine is right now? It's still years off, but mine is, I'm going to finally be secure when the house is paid off. But you know what? When the house is paid off, I've seen how many miles are on those knees. I know what's wrong with my bones. There's medical bills coming in our future after the house is paid off, more than likely. How many good experiences have you had where at the end you thought, nah, I'm good, I don't need anything more? I don't need another piece of cheesecake, ever. Right?
That's a lie.
That's a lie. I don't need another friendship. Guys, girls, who are my athletes? Who are my guys that play sports? You remember the feeling you had when you won a big game? You've never won a big game? Huh? Yes.
Inside joke.
What?
It's an inside joke.
There's a whole story. Okay.
me the story.
And when he repeats the story, he's going to feel it all over again. But before I ask the question, it wouldn't do anything for him. It's a good memory, but you know. So you understand the point here why I keep stacking blocks. Because we keep stacking and stacking and stacking, and number one, here's what's going to happen. Somebody's going to come along and knock you down. You're going to lose some games. You might get fired. Somebody's going to come along and say, you know what, you're not really important in my life anymore, get out. Somebody is going to come along and knock you down. The other thing that happens is that it's going to topple on its own at some point, because we can't just keep stacking and stacking and, okay, this is going to make me feel important, and don't lose these. And this is going to make me feel secure, and this is going to, eventually it's just going to fall down on its own. So then what we do is we decide, okay, well, we're going to build smarter next time, because we got it, We're going to figure this thing out. And so then you start building, and you played Jenga before, that's when people start knocking stuff out. It's weak. We chase after possessions and experiences and relationships, and we squeeze them for significance and comfort and power and worth, and they will fail. They won't give us enough to satisfy. They will stop giving us what they gave us. And then what? We go squeeze something else. When this thing stops giving us what we need, we move on. We compete for significance. We take it from other people. We count it up. We look down on others, defeat our own fragile selves. We think as long as I'm X, I'm okay. But that's always, always, always going to fall short. So we haven't gotten to our questions yet because we haven't gotten to God in this story yet. Verse 5 says this. This is God's response. This makes me laugh. But the Lord came down to the city and the tower that the men were building. Now, God sees everything, we know that. So what he's doing here is he's injecting humor and sarcasm into his own story. Because did you see what it said? This is our first clue as to how this is going to go. If you don't really know the story of the Tower of Babel, it doesn't go well. But this is your first clue that it's not going to go well. The people are trying to build a tower up to heaven, but God has to come down just to see it. So here they are, building up, building up, building up, and I have in my mind this picture of God getting in this magical elevator and pushing the button and like... listening to the Muzak version of Aerosmith or whatever it is. And he goes down and down and down and down, and the doors open, and then he looks down again, and he says, oh, there they are! Isn't that cute? See, this is how silly it is. This is how ridiculously inept it is. This is how foolish it is for us to try and build these things in ourselves. Verse 5, the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they all have the same language, and this is what they began to do. And now nothing which they purpose to do will be impossible for them. So come, let us go down there and confuse their language, so they will not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of the whole earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of the whole earth. So now we've gotten to God in the story. So who is he? What has he done? You can talk back if you want to. Like I said, this isn't a hard one. I'll give you one thing that he is in this story. Absolutely all-powerful. I mean, do you see what he's done? He has shifted world history, culture. He's turned the entire world system upside down in a day. He created nations, because that's what the different languages became. He created nations, just kind of spun them out with the same kind of power that spun out the stars when he created everything. He is absolutely all-powerful. So he's not threatened by man's efforts. He's not rattled. He's not stopping them because they might succeed. See, I've heard people read that and they're like, oh my gosh, God came down and had to stop them because otherwise they were going to make it to heaven. What? So why did he stop? Why did he bring the judgment of confusing their language? Where's the mercy? Where's the grace? Because we know there's always mercy in the judgment. Every judgment until the final judgment is actually mercy. So in order to answer that question, I'm going to go to the next one. Who are we? One of the reasons I love this story is because there's no hero to imitate. You don't go to this story like you go to Noah or Adam and Eve or Abraham next week or David and think, oh, well, I'm David and I get to be the hero. You don't go to this story like that. At best, what we do is we look at this story and we kind of point at those people and go, how silly they are. Right? Look at them idiots. Trying to build a heaven. They can't do that. We look at them the same way we look at the disciples. And a bunch of numbskulls. We look at them the same way that we look at the children of Israel crossing the desert and the Exodus and all of that. If I'd been there, right. So who are we? If you're honest, we're the builders who keep trying to climb high enough only to be knocked down. We keep stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking only to have it knocked down again, and then we keep going. See, that's the one piece of the story that I wish was in there. I wish we knew how long these people continue to work at this thing. I mean, God changes their languages, and so there's all this confusion and stuff, and I really wish I knew how long did they, despite the muddle and the confusion and the mess that, the Jesus story Bible kind of poetically describes, how long did they do that? Because I bet it was a long time. Think about the last time that someone knocked you down a peg. Or something collapsed. I'm absolutely certain that your first response, just like mine, was, well, thank goodness that failed, because I know that really wasn't good for me anyway, and it's never going to satisfy me in the way that I'm looking for. None of those things are going to satisfy my deepest longings. I can do without it, and God, this time, I'm sure that's what happened. I said this before. None of your kids have ever gone to your mom and dad and said, Mom, Dad, thank you for bedtime. Thank you for limiting the number of cookies that we can have, the number of scoops of ice cream that we can have. You are oh so wise, and I trust your goodness. So we don't do that. We are, in this story, we are the builders who keep trying to climb high enough only to be knocked down. That's why God stopped their plans. God stopped their plans because they were pointless anyway. God stopped the building because it wasn't going to work. They will never climb high enough to satisfy their need for comfort and security and value. That is the mercy and the judgment. I'm going to limit the damage by showing them their limits. And so God stops all of their attempts. Every time someone chases after value, worth, significance, importance, all those things, it gets kicked out from under us, and circumstances change, and ultimately it is God behind it all saying, that won't work. When I, get a new car and feel better about myself for 2 weeks or whatever, that won't work. When I get the promotion and get this much money per hour or this salary, that won't work. When the house is paid off, that won't work. When I finally get married, when I finally have kids, when the kids finally move out of the house, when the kids finally come back and visit, none of it is ever going to satisfy. That's why God stops the work. So that's the end, right? I mean, Tower of Babel, that's the end. So we have to creep ahead into next week just a little bit. But I hope you're really glad that we creep ahead. What are your kids? What comes after Genesis 11? Anybody know?
Genesis 12.
Bam! Now, remember, that's exactly the right answer. Remember, what are the people of Shinar trying to build? They're trying to build a city, a tower, and a name, a place of security, a place known for something important, notoriety of all that that would give them. Now listen to Genesis 12. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you, and I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and so you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed." See, I get excited. What does God give in Genesis 12? You people of Shinar, you wanted a city? I'll give you a nation. You want to be known for something? When people think of my people, they're going to think, oh, those are the ones that bless the world. You want a name? I'll give you my name. He changes one of their names to Israel, which means God prevails. One of the main characters in the Old Testament is named Judah, which means God's praise. Jerusalem is called the city of God. It means God, the foundation of peace. Bethel is the house of God. Bethlehem is the house of bread, where the bread of life would be born. Genesis 28 is the story of Jacob and the ladder, and the cool thing about Jacob and the ladder is that it came down. Philippians 2 says that Jesus came down. You want to build up? Oh, I'm going to come down to you. And I don't have to ride a magical elevator to do it. That was just me being silly. You understand that he came down in the form of a person. He came down in the form of Jesus Christ. He came down in order to show us, this is my love for you. Acts 2, you want a community? I'll give you my Holy Spirit to form a community, unlike anything the world has ever seen. So while we keep building ourselves up in futility, God has already built down to lift us up. That is such good news. You want love? You want security? You want significance? You have it. You want a city? Jesus says, I'll give you a kingdom. Luke 12:32, do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. I'll give you a city I build. That's Hebrews 11 and 12. You want a name for yourselves? I'll call you child. You want a name for yourselves? I'll call you friend. And in Revelation, we all get new names. I don't know what that's a whole different message, but it's incredible. See, this is hardwired into us since Eden. Except God was to be the source of all of it. God gave security, comfort, value, importance as a gift. J.D. Greear is a guy that I respect very, very much, and this is one of his quotes, is that every tower is your attempt to rebuild something God has already given you in himself. One of his definitions of the gospel is what man can't do, God does, then gives to man as a gift. So we can't live the life that is pleasing to God, so Jesus lives it in our place. Can't die the death we were condemned, so Jesus died in our place. Can't resurrect ourselves from the dead, so God by His Spirit brings Jesus out and lives through us by His Spirit. So while we keep trying to build up, the good news is that He's already built down. And when we abandon Him, we have to find other sources. But they are always inadequate. When I was, I'm not sure how old some of these kids are. I was going to pick one out or something. When I was a little boy, and I don't think this happens anymore, and please don't even think it. But when I was a little boy, I did the thing that some of the other adults in the room did, where I decided I would run away from home. But I got as far as packing a bag with some stuff, and like a block away, before it was like, oh wait, I got nothing. I didn't even think to bring a sandwich. I got nothing. And we laugh at it, and it's kind of cute in a childish way. My gosh, I did that this past week. God is the one who has given me significance, value, worth, love. But then I go, and I go running away from home again. I feel like I've tipped too far on the scale with this thing, so lest we forget that these things we chase are good things. Security, value, significance, worth, they're good things. We just have to remember their purpose. C.S. Lewis says that good things, specifically in this case the love of God, is the ray of sunshine to lead you to the sun. So in his examples, it's things like marriage is the ray, God's love is the sun. Marriage is the stream, God's love is the fountain. Something else that you crave is the drop, God's love is the ocean. See, we want to be known and valued and approved, and you are. Eternally, infinite. So who are we? We're amnesiacs who keep looking to empty places and keep building pointless towers. But what do? We gratefully return home to the identity He's already given us. Every time I find myself out here someplace wandering around, suddenly insecure because one of my blocks got knocked out, because the whole thing comes tumbling down, I get to go back home. I get to enter God's throne. I get to approach Him and hear Him call me son all over again. Daughter, child. We gratefully return to the identity that He's already given us. And one last thing the story makes so clear. Part of our identity as God's kids means we are sent ones. Bodhi Bacham was a pastor down in Texas for a while. I think he's in Africa now. Pastor of the largest church that is of the kind that we're trying to become, where family is an essential part of things and where we stay together, lots of other things. He says that there's one point to this whole story. Don't stop, go everywhere. I liked that. Disciple is called radically in order to be sent out. I said that at the very beginning. God's whole heart always is just to be pushing you out and giving and serving and all of that. You look at Abraham, he was radically in. We'll talk about this promise that was given next week. And then God says, get out and go. You look at Moses, he's radically in because there's this burning bush, that experience that he has. And from that burning bush, God says, go. You got Isaiah in Isaiah 6 where he sees God and this powerful experience of being cleansed of all of his sin symbolically by this coal that goes to his lips. And then God says, oh, and go. So we're sent ones. Perhaps to go across the street, across town, the idea is not where you go. The idea is that we reject a Christianity that would only say, only here, only with me, only with mine, only with people who look like me. So one more time. Who is God in this story? He is all powerful. He is absolutely all powerful. Changes things in an instant. What does he do? He stops them from building. So who are we? We're the ones that keep trying to build. Despite the fact that he said, it's pointless. You're not going to get everything that you want to get. Somebody's going to knock it out. It's going to fall on its own. But we're the ones that keep forgetting. And we keep building. So what do? We remember that God is also the one who built down to us. We remember that God is the one who has already given us worth, value, identity, power. He's given us everything that we possibly need because He's already built down to us. And what do? We gratefully return to that over and over and over again, knowing that He doesn't get tired of it. And so, Father God, that wasn't much of a closing to the message, but I just